Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, bank holiday weekend is coming to a close and this podcast has been delivered in a bank holiday fashion really. It's a couple of days late, but we've sort of let the juices marinate. And I mean, if I'm being honest, mate, I think everything that we're sort of, the feelings that we're feeling now are feelings that we felt on Saturday evening, aren't they? And I think overwhelmingly positive, considering we lost 2-0. We'll get into all that first, mate. But how are you? Obviously, it was the first trip down to Villa Park in a little while for you. So, on a personal note, really happy to have you back down there, mate. How did it feel?
Yeah, mate, it was really, really good. I mean, always the first game back after the summer break is always special. And it was really, really nice to be back down there, mate. Bank holiday weekend, the vibes were great, the weather was stunning. Seeing a lot of change, especially around the ground. Saw the new mural that had been painted on the walk up to the Holte end, which and just kind of touches like that, which I thought were really, really nice. We're kind of going to get into the fan experience, which I think it kind of says a lot about just how good the performance was that we lost at the weekend, and that seems to be the narrative amongst fans kind of coming out of the game was actually what happened off the pitch rather than on it, which when Aston Villa lose a football match is incredibly rare. Not too many people actually seem to have much to say about the performance, which is great. It was lovely to be back down there, mate. It's been a good bank holiday weekend, very, very busy one. I was actually at the Blossoms gig last night where they kind of soft launched the Oasis news, and completely missed it. No, my phone. I was like on the way back, my phone was just going nuts. Like people pinging me, like, "Oh, did you see it? Did you see it?" And I was like, "Yeah, they were great." And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I didn't even see that." It's been a busy old weekend, mate. But as reunions go, this is the biggest one to happen in the UK media space this weekend for sure.
Yeah, forget Oasis, man. Forget Oasis. The Villa Filler's back. And well, there's no beef with the Villa Filler unlike Oasis, but maybe it's less interesting. But we're here, mate. We're here. I think we should touch on the game first. We'll start with the positives, and then we'll sort of meander our way through to the negatives and the sort of matchday experience, as we alluded to a little bit there. Really happy with the lineup, as I expected it would be following the West Ham game, and largely Unai Emery's comments after the game were, extremely positive and obviously, very complimentary of Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, which he definitely does need to be, considering how he's sort of treated. And we've had the whole sort of week's build-up of who's better, Emery or Arteta, which is just so boring at this stage. Like, at least to me, mate, I think it's pretty clear that Emery is the better coach. However, Arteta is doing the better job. But there are reasons for that. Obviously, with Arteta being backed, and Emery had a bit of issues with the board and signings and whatever. And we could do a whole podcast on that. But this, coming into this game, all that narrative, this is starting to feel like a bit of a grudge match, and it's giving a similar sort of feel to what Arsenal United had like 10 years ago, or even 15 years ago, going back to the Wenger Ferguson days. And it just kind of shows really how far we've come in such a short space of time. And I know we sort of spoke about it off air when we were sort of texting before the game, didn't we, about how confident we were coming into this game. Obviously, we didn't really give you guys a preview on that, but like the fact that we're in this situation when last year we did the double, total shutout, and derailed Arsenal's title hopes. Like, this is a legitimate rivalry that's sort of being formed now, isn't it, mate? And it's quite interesting that going into this game, we were both sort of pretty confident that like something could happen, and Villa could get a result here. Which, for us to go into these big games now against the side that you and I both predicted only a week and a half ago to be winning the Premier League, I'll be interested to know your thoughts if that's changed after 2 weeks. Like, just where we're at right now, like it's so hard to be frustrated that we've lost this game, especially given the performance, but just given like how the land lays now.
This is the problem, mate. When you go and bloody the noses of teams kind of higher above you in the table, traditionally bigger clubs, they don't like it very much, particularly when you do it twice in a season, which they were heavily tipped to go on and achieve that feat last season. You know, it's kind of we were kind of the nail in the coffin, so to speak. That defeat at the Emirates last season was the one that really kind of cemented that it was going to be City that went on and won the title that year. And so to kind of have that narrative around this game, you've got the whole Emery narrative and the, you know, Martinez narrative, and, you know, Arsenal fans have certainly made more of that than I perhaps think is A, necessary, and B, fair. But you know, again, that's a kind of whole different conversation. There's so many kind of plots and subplots to this game now, and you know, I had the pleasure really of being sat really low in the Trinity Road. I was basically behind, well, I was about to say behind the dugout, but the best part was that there aren't any anymore. Yeah, of the park. And so I was only a few rows behind the benches and the coaches, and I spent so much of the game actually just watching Emery and Arteta and their two different ways of coaching, and actually seeing two very emotive coaches kind of doing what they do best and how they both reacted to certain situations. And it was genuinely a fascinating place to sit and watch the game. But my kind of main takeaway was it was so intense and so physical for the entire 90 minutes. And I think the biggest praise that I can give this Villa team is that we stood up to, and if not set that tempo, that physicality was kind of dictated on our own terms. And to kind of see how those boys play and how quick we had to play in certain, like the quick thinking and their touch and close, like the close control, and how strong those boys are, like on both teams. It was genuinely amazing. You get kind of a different level of appreciation for someone like Martin Odegaard, who, like, when you kind of see him up close and how he finds space and kind of drifts in between the lines, you know, not someone that perhaps gets on to as many goals and assists as you perhaps expect for a player like that, but actually kind of in the middle to final third, how effective they are, and his kind of pre-assist stats would be certainly interesting. It was a genuinely like fascinating like place to sit and watch a football game. And that was kind of my takeaway from it. I don't want to jump to the end. There's so much to talk about in between, but my main kind of takeaway was, you know, we've walked away from Villa Park so many times after a defeat, just being like, they didn't compete. We haven't got it tactically. The boys didn't try. We've just not got the quality, like whatever it might be, just a feeling of like total dejection. But I walked out the stadium and I was like, you know, I think if you play that way against 16, maybe 17 of the other teams in this league, like if you play like that, you win. It's as simple as that. I do genuinely believe that. There was so much to like about that. I do think this is the side that will go on and win the Premier League. I think the fact that it's 2 clean sheets in a row to come to us and keep a clean sheet, and I know that we probably could have and should have scored at least 2, but I mean, you know, when David Raya pulls off that save in the second half in front of the Holte, those are the moments where already you know it's not your day. When those chances, like when their goalkeeper is pulling out saves like that, it's just like, you know, it's just not meant to happen. And there was some amazing defending from both sides. And yeah, just a genuinely fascinating watch. So physical, so competitive, and Villa stood up to it every inch. And we're very difficult not to come away with a point. I think to say we deserve to win is probably strong. But yeah, I think we can definitely look at that and say there was a point on the cards. And it's made me, you know, you look at our run over the next few games, and yeah, like if you can take that performance into those, particularly as we, you know, we've dodged the Carabao midweek, there's going to be a lot to like over the next 4 games. I saw enough to keep me happy, man.
Absolutely, mate. I think the biggest backhanded compliment I can give Arsenal, and one that sort of backs up, you know, our reasoning for them winning the league. They've got so many players that I just genuinely despise. David Raya, the way he ran up to the physio to hug him after the first goal, get in the bin, hate that. Ben White, can't stand him. Thomas Partey, obvious reasons why you don't like that guy. Martin Odegaard, phenomenal player, as you say, mate. But boy, little bastard on the pitch, isn't he? Saliba, Gabriel, the way that they were celebrating blocks and interceptions like they'd won the league. And I say all that to say that's the sign of a good team. Even though I do find the over-celebrating very cringy, and it's nothing new with Arsenal. you only have to go back 2 seasons to their 3-2 victory against us to see how they celebrated when the ball came off the back of Emery, which gave them the winner. They genuinely thought they'd won the league that day. So whilst it's incredibly frustrating, Arsenal fans, because you will be listening, because you always do, it can only be a positive thing to hear that from an opposition fan. But really, mate, this was the Morgan Rogers show. A kid, I mean, I'm almost getting fed up of saying it first, 'cause every week, I adore this man. He is absolutely phenomenal, and he does genuinely get better and better as each week passes. And he stands out so much. I was thinking about this. You know, everything is so sort of like well drilled and sort of slow and tactical, and you know, every pass is like premeditated, and a lot of plays just in modern football. I'm talking modern football in general here, not Villa. But I mean, obviously us to a certain degree. Everything has been worked on for, you know, the week building up to this game, and you know, the patterns of play and the little, you know, your little triangles. All of that is done on the training ground, right? So it can be executed to perfection come Saturday at 3:00. Morgan Rogers receives the ball at his feet. All he wants to do is take people on and run and be direct. And it's like you've sort of taken the best attributes of Villa's sort of best players when you look at how direct he is, you know, very similar to JJ in that aspect, and how physical he is, very similar to John McGinn, and he's got an eye for goal, you know, sort of similar to Ollie Watkins as well. And I know he's not scored yet, but he's developing so well. And there was 2 or 3 times where he had sat Rice 2 or 3 times consecutively, went one way, went the next, faked it back, then just completely drove past him. And he's such a throwback. He's so exciting to watch. I know I've sort of, you know, gone over the top and compared him to someone like Zinedine Zidane before in previous podcasts, but I'm feeling it's more Yaya Toure-esque, really, if I'm being honest, mate. Just the way he plays, the swagger, the confidence, everything you hear about this guy from journos, Emery, is glowing. And, you know, if you look at the numbers, they're not glowing, right? But this is just the proof that sometimes the eye test is all you need. I had friends who are Arsenal fans texting me all throughout the game, oh my God, who is this Morgan Rogers guy? This kid is phenomenal. Like, you're going places with him. He was wonderful, mate. And there was the movement that led to Ollie's first chance that he missed. Like, to show the initiative to bust a lung to go and make that ball after, I think it was Leon that was fouled and sort of lost possession. And he can get away with it because he's so strong, and 2, he's so quick. He had the explosiveness to reach, you know, to get to the ball in the first place. And, you know, when he's sort of under pressure, he's able to just shrug people off. Obviously, it's a gilt-edged chance that Ollie's missed. It almost feels like redundant talking about like criticising Ollie yet, because he's not had a pre-season. As frustrating as it can be missing, you know, the chances that he missed, it's going to happen. But we know that he's good value to score. But yeah, Morgan is my favourite player. Morgan is my favourite Aston Villa player right now. And I love that little thing. Like, whenever he has the ball, he loves to take people on, doesn't he? Like, he'll have the ball, he'll knock it past someone, and like either just like shoulder them out the way or like run round them and get the ball. And like, he genuinely plays like, you know, you and I were down at Power League, mate, which is, I think, why
I wish
so much. Well,
I wish.
How we try to play, at least. Which is, I think, just like he's endeared himself so well to Villa fans. And like, I know since he's come, I've sort of rambled on for so long, but it's just how much I love the kid, mate. You know, since he's come, we've been singing this guy's praises, and it's in games like this, you know, against big opposition, when the whole world is watching, he's stood up, he's put in a really solid performance, and people are starting to take note.
It's so impressive, the lead that he's taken, like, so quickly. And I'm not just talking about since he signed, I'm talking from the back end of last season to this season. Like, what we saw yesterday, we've seen glimpses, like, to do it, like he did it 5 or 6 times, like in that game. We've not seen it like that before. we've not seen him really grab a game by the scruff of the neck and take it to the opposition. He's often been kind of like the icing on the cherry on the cake. Last season he'd get the third in a 3-0 win, or like, he'd add to games and stuff like that. And real moments of quality. But this was like, nah, my team needs me here. And I think when you look at the other players that were on that pitch yesterday, outside of the defence, so the midfield and the forwards, he's the only name that I would, bet the bank on him starting the next game. Like all of the others, it's like Ollie, maybe he's not fit. Maybe you look at John, and you kind of look at like JJ and Leon, like had good games. Onana kind of came off and stuff like that. And there's some interesting kind of things to kind of figure out. But Morgan Rogers is the one that he starts 100%. And that's crazy considering, he was kind of this complementary piece last season. And so, yeah, just absolutely loved watching him play. I did think he was the best player on the pitch, which, when you consider the names amongst both ours and their teams is some credit. I think your point about so much of our football is pre-orchestrated, and Arsenal are set up so well to deal with passages of play and patterns of play that they've scouted and they've seen and they've watched tape on. But there's no rule book for a kid that just, is unbelievable on the half turn and is going to pick it and put your defence in knots. Like you can't really prepare for that, and teams don't prepare for that. 1v1 kind of attacking play is such a lost art in the modern game. And so you can see how even, someone like Saliba, who is, maybe pound for pound the best centre-back in the Premier League at the moment, like genuinely, same with Declan Rice, like these players didn't know what to do with Morgan at times. He is perhaps a final ball, and this has been super picky, a final ball with a finish away from just being a total game breaker. I think if that's the next bit that he can add to his game, there were times where, beat 4 or 5 men and then the pass just wouldn't quite get through, or it'd get into the box and get crowded out. If he can just, that decisiveness in the final third, if we can add that to him, and I think he's already got it there, it's just, when he's doing it on such a consistent basis, it's just taking it to that next level. What a player he's going to be for us this season.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And it comes with experience, really, that, doesn't it? So, we will see improvements in that this season, I'm sure. What did you make of Onana? I thought he had a pretty decent game. He, for me, kind of almost seamlessly fitted into the molds of midfielder, the role, that Kamara would fill in. A lot of the time when Kashi or Bailey were pushing up, you see Amadou drop into that sort of like inverted right back spot, which we saw so frequently from Booba. I think I prefer him a little bit further up the pitch, and that's not to say that he did a bad job at all. I just loved watching this guy, when Arsenal was sort of transitioning against us. I loved watching him, sort of hunt the ball down because he's so long and powerful and deceptively quick, actually. And I liked seeing him sort of be busy in the midfield, and that's not to say that he wasn't, but I think naturally, like without the ball, I think there are attributes to his game that could really assist us, in terms of like pressing and stuff like that. He's not like, for me, a Boubacar Kamara carbon copy, in the same way that like he's not a Douglas Luiz carbon copy either. And my dad was saying that during the game, like there's like a savviness that we miss in the midfield at the moment that Douglas Luiz sort of brought in terms of like relationships between players on the pitch. And obviously, again, that is something that develops with time. But there were times where, we sort of received a free kick and we like waited 15 seconds to take it. Whereas like if Dougie was the one on the ball, because I think like McGinn made like a lung busting run into space while Ben White was still sort of arguing with the ref. And, you could almost like bet your house on Dougie just playing that first time to Guinea, and then we're sort of on the front foot. But I mean, like overall, like it sounds like I'm being really nitpicky here. I'm not. I just think that Onana and his attributes could be a little bit better suited further up the midfield when someone like Kamara's back. And obviously, like everything that Emery's saying, that could be within a month. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops.
That's a wall right there.
Yeah.
As a midfield partnership. I mean, wow. Yeah, I did think yesterday we did miss Douglas Luiz a little bit, actually. I just think that kind of calming presence to put a foot on a ball, his ability to pick out a pass would have been really well suited to that game, actually. And so, but that said, yeah, so much to like from Mamadou's first couple of games. And it was a very difficult kind of first half, really. There were so many stoppages for injuries. Onana himself goes down. We had Bailey go down. Konza went down. Like, it was so stop-start. We obviously get forced into a change early on, and Nedeljkovic has to come on for cash. And so for all of those boys that, starting their first games at home against a very difficult opposition, it's a very difficult game to get into the rhythm of, because it was so stop-start. There was a long breaks, with physios coming on and stuff like that. Obviously, it was a very physical game as well, and so I did think that kind of had to be taken into account for all of the lads. And I think Onana had a good game as the first two games for a new club go. So much to like there. He's going to have a fantastic season for sure. I think Nedeljkovic just looked like a 18-year-old that he just brought in off the continent. Obviously, he kind of needs just to acclimatise into the Premier League. But again, like this, and I've seen enough from these first two games to know he's going to be absolutely fine. He's going to be absolutely fine. I think it'd be interesting to see how we kind of handle that cash injury over the next few games, and kind of whether we do go all in on Nedeljkovic or whether there's a kind of Konza at right back situation that emerges again, and kind of how Emery looks to handle that. And so, because I do feel that, yeah, like you could see that, once he was on, Arsenal really started to target him, and teams will do that because, he is, and this is no disrespect, but he is going to be the weak link. And so we've got to kind of handle these situations. But no, Onana was good. What a great option he's going to be. We've got good depth now, and you kind of don't worry so much when, players go off and, there's a good player waiting in the wings. So, no, for all of the boys that are kind of playing their first games, at home or back at home in Barkley's case, I think there's a lot to like for sure.
Yeah, I think the Nedeljkovic sub was actually quite telling on how that situation is going to sort of transpire, because Diego's on the bench, and we've obviously last season played a lot of games with Pau and Diego as the centre half pairing and Konsa at right back. So I think the fact that Costa got on. And by the way, are we calling him Costa? Are we calling him Ned? What are we shouting in the stadium? Because I didn't really know what to go with. So let us know in the comments. But yeah, I do think that that's quite interesting that Diego got 0 minutes, especially when in both Arsenal games he just dominated, like straight up. He locked down Arsenal almost single-handedly. So I think, and the fixture, like we've got obviously Leicester and Everton, haven't we? So it'll be interesting to see, whether the opposition will determine who plays as well. But I wouldn't be surprised to see more of Costa. I feel like a lot of people were really high on him, and I can understand why, because, he's 18. I don't think he or any of us would have expected that he would have played as many minutes as he has in the Premier League so far across both of those games. But I think it was definitely a steep learning curve for him. And put it this way, I don't think we'll see a worse performance from him anytime soon. And that's not to say that he was bad, but I think he got posed with two very different scenarios, didn't he, throughout this game? He had, the task of initially marking Gabriel Martinelli, who Arsenal were obviously looking to get the ball out to a lot of the time, sort of dribbling with the ball. So, had to sort of make sure he was careful, jockeying, getting the tackles in when he could. But then the moment Trossard came on, it's a completely different ball game from Arsenal, because Trossard's speciality is, his movement off the ball. So all of a sudden, Costa has to dial in that little bit more. And obviously his experience, Trossard's that is, obviously massively outweighs that of Martinelli's. Obviously both phenomenal players, both very different players. So yeah, it's one of them. I mean, he made the really good sort of back heel flicked block as well for one of the chances that they tried to work. I don't want people to think I'm like being really down on him, but I did personally just find a lot of the sort of the talk, the narrative around him, personally, I just didn't agree with. I thought he was okay, and that was it really. But the thing, like, he's an option now, right? And we didn't have this option last season. So whether it is Concert right back against Leicester or whether it is Costa, I'm going to rock with Ned. I kind of like Ned. Ned seems cool. Or whether it is Ned, then at least we have the option, right? Because last season, if Cash was injured, it's Emery. And as great as Emery has been at right back, I always just want to see him play centre half because that's his position. And then, of course, you're only a Concert injury away from having no right back. And obviously, Kane Kester-Hayden was on the bench an awful lot during the second part of last season, but the sort of distinct lack of minutes is obviously quite telling of Unai's thoughts on him, and obviously he's gone out on loan this season as well. So yeah, there's that. I mean, I guess we should probably talk about the Raya save, because I've seen it back quite a few times. It is quite difficult how it falls to Ollie, I think, but it's an unbelievable save. It is, like, genuinely an unbelievable, like, for the reactions of Raya to be able to get up and make that save. I don't necessarily think Ollie can put it anywhere else, given the time. But, like, watching Match of the Day back, it haunts me, man, because could he not have volleyed it? Like, I don't know. I'm obviously not an elite striker, so maybe it's almost pointless me talking about it. But it felt gilt edged, didn't it?
It's really difficult to kind of my stance on this normally is that, you know, if my opinion, like, I think that was your save of the season. I really do. I think come the end of the season, that'll be your Castrol save, whatever the fuck it is. That'll win. And so my opinion is with that is, like, normally, if that's the case, then you kind of have to accept the striker's done everything he can, and, like, it's just an amazing, like, I think it's not the fact that he got there, it's the fact that he keeps it out. I think that's the difference. And I think, you know, so many keepers would be able to get to that in the Premier League, but wouldn't be able to have the risk to push it away from goal. You know, maybe they palm it into the roof of the net, or they just, you know, falls to Ollie again, or, like, it kind of, it's how Raya A gets to it, but B is able to get it so far from goal was what was so impressive. I genuinely couldn't believe it. And so I think it's kind of in the context of the first miss that we kind of maybe were seeing Ollie's chance of scoring through that. I think, you know, if Ollie had tucked away that first goal and was already off and running and, you know, had already scored, then I do think we definitely chalk up the second one to fantastic goalkeeping. But I think it's because he missed the first one that we then, you know, we categorise the second one as a miss as well. And absolutely, Ollie should have scored, but I think he did enough to score. I really do. I just think you have to look at that and kind of every now and again just take your hat off. And yeah, I mean, wow, what a save. Emery made some great saves as well. You know, like, there was that one, I can't remember who comes inside, but it's Saka. There's a great save he makes in the first half down to his right in front of the Holte end. There was some really great goalkeeping. I think he should have done better with Partey's goal, but it comes through a lot of bodies. But that, you know, that's what I'm talking about. You know, like, you've seen it right there in Emery. He's able to get down to that shot, but can't keep it out. And that's what was most impressive about that Raya save, is that he managed to get it so far away from goal. There wasn't a chance for a rebound. And yeah, I mean, on another day, I think Villa score two and we come away with a point. But yeah, there's your save of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think as well, like, we were, like, so in this game, and I think the subs that were made were, like, obviously in the view of, like, go and get the win, right? We've completely changed that left-hand side. We've put JJ on. Obviously gets sort of a half chance near the end of the game. We've put Matson on. But both of Arsenal's goals are then created down that side. And obviously it's easy to look back on after the fact, but I felt like Dean was doing, like, a fine job of keeping Saka, like, relatively quiet. But I think, you know, like, those things are going to happen when you make changes and you take risks. And Emery didn't seem too bothered because, you know, obviously he felt like we did enough during that game to go on and get at least a point. But I did find it quite interesting. I mean, we obviously all know how dangerous Bukayo Saka is. And And I just felt we lost a bit of that grit when Dean and McGinn came off.
Yeah, that's the kind of one thing that I think we will see, maybe like as we kind of make changes throughout the season. And I think we kind of saw it in the back end of the West Ham game, particularly. I'm going to flip it to the right hand side when you've got Nedeljkovic and JPB. So you've got Pilic, Bedes and Nedeljkovic, which is a right hand side, which as it looks like we're going to have to play a lot of this season. But automatically, I think it was Somerville that came on then, and he was able to kind of get at that right-hand side. It's a very young and very experienced right-hand side. And so I think that's the kind of thing when we're rotating these guys around. And, Maatsen, when he comes in, I think there's a lot to like from his kind of performance yesterday. But maybe that's just going to take a little while to kind of see him. It's a matter of, when, not if, he establishes himself as the main choice on the left-hand side. So that kind of period of acclimatization, we needed to happen quite quickly, really, because, Unai's hands, he's already had to play quite a few with the injuries that we've had already this season. And like the way that the boys are going down in the first half, looks like, we really are going to have to keep shuffling the pack this season. And we want to be able to do that with confidence. And I think when you look at games that we've got coming up, that probably is a good chance to kind of experiment with those different combinations, see what we can get going down the flanks, and just give exposure to as many of the guys as possible, because there's so many new parts in that team, genuine quality, but for them to kind of slot in and figure it out and contribute to the picture is going to take a little bit of work.
Absolutely. But, overall, solid performance, and, we'll perform like that in a lot of games and get positive results throughout the season. So for me, that's the main takeaway. And just wanted to shout out Leon Bailey. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal defensive work, especially.
Yes, absolutely.
Just absolutely what you want, what you need, really developing into a leader of the squad. And I just love to see it, because we were all in on Leon, mate. We were all in, even when no one else was. So, it's good to see how important and sort of indispensable he's become in this team. But before we go, mate, just thought we'd touch on the sort of match-going experience. New Villa store, nice. Don't really have a lot to say on that. New hospitality offerings, great. Club needs to make money. Go get your money. Go do that. New tunnel, split opinions, but I think the sort of, it's not claret, like, come on, everywhere else is claret and blue in the stadium. And we don't see it. We don't even see it. So it's a head loss over nothing. All of this stuff, great, right, that I've just listed off. But the sort of the 40-minute queues to get in the stadium, the whole e-ticket thing, all for saving a little bit of money on and not sending out plastic season ticket cards. I know it's teething problems, and in a couple of weeks it won't be anywhere near as bad, but come on, is it really worth the stress? The loos in the whole end, oh my days, overflowing with piss. And so many people are going to feel incredibly shortchanged when they're paying like £800 for a season ticket and you're literally wading through piss. And whilst we're levelling up in so many aspects, and, as you sort of mentioned, mate, with the mural and all this kind of stuff, like there are so many aspects of the matchday experience that Villa have improved, but when you sort of look at the sort of general admission ticket, there is almost no value for money there at all. And, Chris Heck has got a lot, and I mean a lot of praise for a lot of things he's done, and rightfully so. But I just personally feel like we need to, highlight the negative experiences that we are sort of experiencing, because, really, the situation in the Holte the other day was inexcusable.
Football fans have very, very short memories, and we shouldn't forget that kind of open letter that was circulating on social from, disgruntled employees at the club. And the Chris Heck era, I know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Chris Heck is a very, very clever man, and I think that's the best way to put it. It's very easy how quickly football fans kind of forget about things, and it's like for all that stuff going on, there was a lot of change, a lot of people leaving the club. There was a mass exodus of staff throughout the summer across all departments. And you paint a nice wall outside the ground, and you change the club shop, and all of a sudden, you're the best thing since sliced bread. I'm very hesitant to give too much praise to the club shop, and wax lyrical about a cash making machine. I was kind of in there and I was like, this is great, but it is specifically designed to empty my wallet. And so I can't give too much praise on that. I think it looks better. I like the memorabilia. I think it's a much nicer experience, but I can't give too much praise to something which is ultimately meant to strip me of my cash. And for what it's worth, it worked. I did walk out with like an £88 home shirt with Champions League badges on the sleeve, but that's by the by. Yeah, like it is kind of, it's very difficult because so much of it is a cash making engine. It's about, getting us to the ground and having us spend money there rather than outside. But something that the club have to work on. I think they will. I think that this is more transparent. I think the ownership are more likely to listen to us than they have been in previous years. For what it's worth, the Trinity wasn't too bad. I'd love to know how much of the queues were to do with, I had an old boy in front of me that just couldn't figure out the whole contactless Apple Wallet thing. How much of the queues are to do with tech and how it's to do with the old boys in the Holte that can't figure it out? I would love to know. But either way, I think the club will figure it out. But I'm trying to remain pretty easy on things.
Yeah, I think it's something we'll obviously be keeping a keen eye on ourselves, mate, and making sure that this improves week by week and that we're not, getting less of an experience. Value for money wise, at least, the football is obviously worth the admission, but everything else should also be accounted for as well. Guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and give us some score predictions for Leicester as well. We may be back for a preview. Hopefully we're back talking about signings, but like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.